Desolate Altars by Kafula-s. Luombe ran her hand over the well-spread double bed. The cover was a beautiful deep blue nylon that matched with the floral curtains that dropped majestically to the aqua green carpeted floor. The combination of this decor made the room come alive to a very colorful and beautiful image that contradicted the icy and empty feelings that the owners had for each other. The bed was stone cold. It was in the middle of winter, and on this particular night, Luombe knew that she was in for a very chilly time. She put the covers back and carefully took off her soft pink slippers, pushing them aside with her left foot, and drew her maroon silk gown closer. Underneath the gown, she wore a matching nightdress that clutched her curves softly. She snuggled into bed, propping herself on the huge pillows that made the bed look larger than it really was. When she was comfortable enough, she turned the bedside lamp on. Luombe was a beautiful middle-aged woman in her early 40s. Her dark chocolate complexion glowed against the colors of the night clothes she was wearing. At her age, she still looked very young. Her skin was as smooth as when she was born. Her hair was a jet black without a streak of gray. She was tall and slender, with proportionate curves that held any type of garment appropriately, as if they were always tailored for her. Luombe was the only child of Chileshebwalia. She had received a good education that had seen her through secondary school and university. She was the director of marketing in one of the biggest telecommunication companies. She had a good salary, but not good enough for her to afford the luxurious delights that she unreservedly indulged in. Her husband of 15 years was the provider of the superfluous wealth that comprised a large house, cars, and trips abroad, and she had traveled extensively. She wore the best and latest fashions, for Luombe was very up to date with latest fashion designer clothes. She had it all. She put the cover up to her chest, picked a book from the side table, and started to read. This was her way of wheeling away the lonely nights that she usually spent in this mansion. She thought about her husband Shadrach, who was an absentee husband because he spent almost all his time with his long-standing girlfriend, Felicia. The relationship between Shadrach and Felicia had been in existence forever, long before Luombe got married to Shadrach. She had been aware of the affair, but her strong love for Shadrach had hoodwinked her into this loveless marriage that had once started on a good note, a bottomless pit into which she had sunk over the years. She had since lost all energy and courage to get out of it. Or was it the rich life that kept her glued to a man who could not even mention her name? She turned on her side. The book was Desolate Altars. Luombe was in chapter 8, which took her way back to the early 16th century, a time when her forefathers walked about almost naked in the jungles of Africa. Way, way back in time, when man's life much depended on the dictates of his surroundings. The setting was Sensela village, which was well known for its great hunters and medicine men. Their reputation had spanned the entire region in the north, and stories about the mighty men who hunted in the most dangerous forests had been passed on from one generation to another by way of mouth. In Sensela, there was one warrior by the name of Bwalia, a mighty man with prowess, who had killed both large and small animals. He was tall and masculine in build. His skin was a deep, dark brown that radiated when he sweated. For Walia really sweated profusely, even when he was doing a simple task like sharpening his hunting knives. His family was one of the largest. Being famous and rich, Walia attracted every beautiful maiden who crossed his path. Parents of young girls offered their daughters for Walia to marry, and as a result, his compound sprawled with many huts that housed his large and extended family. Walia had 10 wives and countless number of children, some of them born to concubines he had met on his numerous adventures. But how had Walia waxed so great? Many people asked, but never really got an answer. Some said that it was because of his large family, such that the spirits of his ancestors became obliged to bless him with much wealth. Others resolved it was just plain luck. However, Walia's wealth was fixed firmly to a mystery. Deep in the enigmatic forest, on untrodden paths, was an altar that received sacrifice full moon after full moon. His wealth also received blessings from the profound furtive charm that he kept close to his heart. It was a piece of dried human flesh that had been wrapped on a dry piece of leaf from the mubanga tree. The fetish came from the heart of a virgin at full moon in winter, and it was always winter. Walia disappeared for days on the pretext of going hunting, but his concealed activities led him on a path of murder and immense sacrifice, what he called the renewal of a covenant. He kidnapped and killed virgins, whose hearts he ripped out and would rush to the most dreaded medicine man, who lived in the middle of the thick forest, for a sacrifice that took place at midnight. For this ominous sacrifice to the gods and his ancestors, Walia was made proficient in hunting and given much wealth. A piece of this heart would be wrapped afresh for Walia to carry around until the next ritual. This dreaded medicine man, feared by many in the surrounding villages, made incantations in Walia's favor. For Walia's lineage, it had been a secret action that had been passed on from generation to generation at the death of the bearer of the charm. In one way or the other, the next in line always got initiated into this stealth deed. The spirit of the predecessor led them to the altar. Walia was the 4th generation to enjoy the power of the covenant that his great-grandfather had made with the witch who dwelt deep in the forest many miles away from Sensela village. The initiator of this covenant, Boaliamkali, was his great-grandfather. He had been born into a very poor family. Everything the family did never materialized into anything. It is a curse, the old witch had said when Boaliamkali had gone to consult. But how could it have happened? Walia's great-grandfather had asked, very perplexed. Well, your forefathers caused this misfortune when they failed to appease their forefathers before that. The portent of the curse becomes stronger in every generation. You are the 4th in line and the worst has happened. How can I put a stop to this thing? Boaliamkali was desperate. The solution that the old witch gave to Boaliamkali is what turned out to be the generational wealth that the Walias had enjoyed for a long time, bringing marked success in Walia's lineage. But the witch had been quick to caution. It needs to be passed on to the eldest male in every generation, who should continually offer sacrifices at the altar. Otherwise, the curse will return and worse things may happen. Never leave the altar desolate. With the finality of his word, the witch had handed Mukali the initial ingredients of the pact. When Wale's great-grandfather emerged from the witch's den, he did not look back. Within a short period of time, he grew great to the amazement of those around him. His prosperity mushroomed from nowhere, and he faithfully passed it on to his son at his death. This went on until Walia, who was the fourth in line, received the mantle from his father. Luambe was jolted back to reality when she heard the key turn in the lock. She looked at the clock on the wall opposite her bed. It was 4 in the morning.